Hi everybody, Carol here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making Happy New Year card. And I will apologize for my voice in that I do not have a microphone today. It has gone haywire on me for the I don't know how manyth time, and I finally took it back and was actually trying to buy another part to fix it, and the clerk at the store actually said, why don't you just turn it in? This is sounds like a bad one. So anyway, it'll be a few days before I get another one, so I hate it that I know it doesn't sound as good. But anyway, that aside, I wanted to go ahead and make a card. This may be the last card of the year, I don't know. But anyway, this is kind of a retro looking card. I love retro things. I don't know what it does. It just kind of warms my heart. I love the look of it. And so this is going to be pink and turquoise, and are the main colors. And I have two different shades of pink. One of them is actually a hot pink, and the other is actually a rose. And I think they both look really good with turquoise and kind of represent that era. But so I'm going to be cutting some cardstock, and I'm going to give you the measurements of the pieces that I cut, although it's not really important. It's just as a guideline. You might be wondering, I make an A6 card, which is 6 1/4 by 4 1/2, and so these are made to fit on that size of card, and it might not be what you would use at all. But the pink, I'm cutting in strips of 1 1/2 by 4. The turquoise, I'm cutting in strips of 1 7/8 by 3 7/8. And then they have a black background that's about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch bigger all the way around. So, you know, just a very slim black background, just to make it stand out, I think. And so I'm showing my card base that I do fold and score. This is a Martha Stewart scoreboard, and so I I score it right at 4 1/2, and then I put it under a very heavy object, in this case a book, and to try to get that nice and flat. But then cutting that black right there, it was such a small strip, and I do save my scraps, so that I had to back it up with another sheet of paper to butt it up against so I could cut it straight. Now I'm using at least 3 stamp sets, and these are Stampin' Up! Stamps, but I am not a dealer, never have been. These are old and probably retired, but the one set was the last one I showed there with the snow cone and all of that, is Perfect Party. The other one, I'm going to be using a little party hat from it. It's called Party Hardy. And then the retro looking lady with the cup of coffee in her hand is Sip by Sip. And I'll use at least 2, maybe more than that, stamps from that set. And then the letters that I'm using are literally called Retro Alphabet, and it's the uppercase and the lowercase. And I don't typically use alphabet stamps, but I love the look of this stamp, simply again because I love the retro look. But so I'm using turquoise ink, and making 2 cards at one time, and stamping out the word happy in all caps, and just kind of spacing them. They're not going to be exactly alike because we're hand doing them, right? So each card is unique in a way, but trying to follow a pattern and get these letters to fit on this 4 1/2 inch wide piece of paper. I could have made it a little smaller and wanted to really, and have a black background for an edging around it, but I just really didn't even have room to get New Year on there, and I didn't have room to put the exclamation point, so I had to put it somewhere else. But I made these all caps, and then New Year, just the N and the Y capital, and then little letters, and the little letters have a little star or asterisk above them, or somewhere on the stamp, and I think it's just really cute. But anyway, so stamping this, and I'm speeding it up so you don't have to look at it that long, and So then it does get awfully close, and some of the letters overlap a little bit, but I don't think it matters. It just kind of gives it that funky look, I guess. So anyway, I think those were all the particulars. I run the pinks through my Big Shot in an embossing folder by Sizzix. I think it's called, I'm not sure, but it's polka dots, so it might be perfect polka dots. I'm not sure. I can't even, I've had it so long I can't even find the papers on it, but anyway, so and now I'm back to some of the stamps from the Perfect Party. And I mean, you have stamps like this with different stamp sets. It's confetti looking or stars looking. You could use different things. So I'm scattering around and stamping some of them in pink, and I'll go back and do a different stamp in yellow. And again, this is pink ink on one card, and it's rose ink on another card. And I'm just wearing those strips of paper rather than make a mask for every single one of those rectangles, and just to kind of block it off in general so that it doesn't overlap. And I'm protecting my turquoise paper underneath so it doesn't get off on that either. And just scattering it around, knowing full well that those on the bottom are probably going to be covered up by the colored cardstock in the very end, but just in case there's a little bit of peeking out from behind, it's not a lot of effort to put that in there. And so now this little stamp is kind of like, a little streamer, little ribbon hanging down, and I'm just scattering it round about. It's just wherever you think it might go, and next time it might be completely different on the next card. But I'm just trying to avoid getting on top of the letters, but even at that, I don't think it's that big a deal. Now I took a piece of one of my scraps that I cut off of my card base, my 8.5 by 11 white cardstock, and this is what is left over. And so I'm stamping some party hats, some in pink and then some in the rose, and then I'll go back and cut them out in a minute and try to do a little edging on them with the neutral colored ink that I put on with a makeup sponge. And then this stamp is from the Sip by Sip set, and as you'll be able to see, it says something on like coffee and mint and chocolate or something, or the richer they are the better. And I didn't want that on the card. This says thanks a latte, and I didn't want that on the card, so I cut that part out, and you can see it there on the top of the wooden block, so that all I'm getting is the lady holding a cup of coffee. And I haven't said, but coffee is my beverage of choice. So for me, on New Year's Eve, I would rather have coffee than just about anything else, and decaf at that. So, but anyway, so stamped her off. And then, as I do so often, I've got my neutral color, light between a tan or a brown. It's just a real neutral, and I like to go around the edges of all my colored cardstock and white cardstock, because it, to me, just kind of frames it and gives it an edge. And even though I am going to back it with the black, this still gives it kind of a vintage look too, kind of a weathered and aged look. So I'm putting it around anything that will show, even including the background paper. And I just like the look, so that's why I do it. Now I'm going to cut out these little party hats. They're going to sit on top of her head, and try to speed this up so it wouldn't take quite so long. And I don't think I showed, but I did go back with the sponge and put a little bit of edge on these hats also, just to give a little interest, basically, is the reason, and I do think it works. Now there's one more stamp, well, there are more than one, but this one that I'm going to use, one more I'm going to use from the Sip by Sip, is the steam coming up off the hot cup of coffee. And so I just, as typical, I'll just go ahead and stamp several. So maybe the next time I make a card with that on there, this will already be stamped and I won't have to stamp it again. But I'm just going to cut it out because it's white on top of a white background, so it doesn't have to be exact. I could have stamped directly onto the paper. That would have been just fine, but probably would have had to use a stamp positioner to be sure that it came directly out of the cup and was centered and all of that. So I left a little tag on the bottom of that steam or smoke or whatever to hold on to for one thing. I thought I might want to cut a slit into the coffee cup and poke that underneath, but I decided I didn't want to do that. And here I'm putting on my repositionable glue, and on the piece that went through the embossing folder that has a raised edge, I squiggled across the back of it because it has a bumpy surface, a little more difficult to adhere to anything. So I put extra glue on it. But now that has set for quite a while, and it's dried and it's ready to be placed down. So now I'm putting them on my card base, and you'll see what I'm going to do with the black. It does not go all the way across the bottom. I have it staggered just for interest. The black and the pink will be at the bottom, offset, with just a little bit of edging showing with the black. And then the turquoise I will layer on top of that, and it will go all the way to the right to the edge. Just again, just with a little bit of an offset. And get that lined up as evenly as I can. And put the turquoise down. And then next, I will put the girl down, or the lady. And there's just almost not room for her and the exclamation point. I could have put the exclamation point somewhere else, I guess, but to me it just doesn't really matter. It's fine. And so I will glue her down. Later, go back with some Prismacolors and do a little bit of coloring, not much. But here goes her party hat, and as you know, a party hat goes usually with some kind of a rubber string that goes around your neck to keep the hat on your head. So I just drew with a pencil just to get an idea of where that strap would go, and I will go back later with a Millennium pen, pretty thin, and draw that in, and then erase the pencil line. And here goes my little coffee steam smoke, and I'm experimenting with which one I want to put down. I cut off the bottom in with two different lengths. One, and you see which one you think looks better. One where the smoke is coming up a little higher off the cup, more into the air. The other one with the smoke coming directly out of the cup. And so I like them both. But see, there's a little bit of space there, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Now, originally I thought I might cut that little gash right there and stick the smoke down in there, but I decided to not do that. And then here's the other one with the smoke or steam coming just directly out of the cup. So I just went with that. Now there's one other stamp, and this is the one that's called chocolate and mint or and coffee or whatever, or better, the richer the better, whatever, and I definitely didn't want to use that sentiment, so I cut it out so that I could just stamp the coffee stain directly onto the paper. And I experimented. I used a chocolate, a brown for coffee, of course, and then I stamped it full strength, you might say, a little play on words there, and then I stamped it again, second generation. And it's just a matter of preference which one you like better. I decided to go with the stamped off one and have a lighter color for the inside. I will probably go back and say Happy 2018 or something like that, or Blessings for the New Year, something along that line. And then you can see I also set out the Versamark ink pad because you've probably done this yourself and know that if you stamp onto that, it's clear, very sticky, but when it dries, it just has a slight heightened color. You can see on the far left of whatever the paper is. So I think it's a good look too. So here are the cards. They are done. And very festive. Happy New Year, celebrate, party. I went back and gave her some pink cheeks, colored in the coffee cup. But have a great New Year's Eve and a great New Year.